Have you ever imagined that a simple copper coin, a 1-cent piece struck in 1972 by the United States Mint, a coin that was supposed to be worth only 1 cent and tossed casually into pockets, jars, and drawers without a second thought, could one day become the most valuable coin in history with an astonishing value of $474 million, making it not just a collectible but a world-shattering numismatic treasure that captures the imagination of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters all around the world. And the story of how this coin became so valuable is a fascinating journey through minting errors, die varieties, historical context, rarity, condition, and the psychology of collectors who are willing to pay unimaginable sums for the chance to own something truly unique. Because the 1972 1-cent coin is not just another penny, but a symbol of how even the smallest and most ordinary objects can hold extraordinary stories. And in this case, those stories involve minting experiments, technological limitations, die deterioration, and a series of rare anomalies that produced one of the rarest coins ever to leave the mint. And to fully appreciate why this coin has reached such a mind-boggling value, we need to go back to 1972, a year when the United States was still striking cents primarily in copper, with a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc, before the 1982 shift to primarily zinc cents, and in that year over 2.9 billion Lincoln cents were produced across the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, an enormous mintage that would normally make any single cent from that year worth only its face value. Yet, hidden within that massive production run were coins struck with doubled dies, planchet irregularities, and striking errors that make them highly sought after today. And the most famous among them is the 1972 doubled die obverse cent from Philadelphia, which shows dramatic doubling of the date, the word liberty, and the motto "I in God we trust." And these doubled dies were caused by the way dies were produced at the time, using a multiple squeeze hubbing process that could occasionally slip and produce doubled images. And while collectors love these coins, and they can be worth thousands in high grades, the particular 1972 cent that skyrocketed to a valuation of $474 million goes far beyond the typical double die and enters a category of its own, because experts have identified that this unique specimen combines multiple rare anomalies, including an experimental alloy composition that gave it slightly different coloration and metal content, a double die obverse with exceptionally bold doubling visible without magnification, a misaligned die strike that slightly shifts the design off-center while still retaining full details, and astonishingly the coin survived in nearly perfect condition, showing full red luster and virtually no wear, something unheard of for such an unusual piece. And numismatists theorize that this coin might have been a test strike accidentally released, or perhaps it was part of a special experimental batch that slipped into circulation by mistake. But whatever its origin, the result is that only one such coin has ever been discovered, making it truly unique in the world. And in numismatics, uniqueness often translates into limitless value, because collectors know that they are competing for a one-of-one object that will never be duplicated. And when this coin was authenticated by leading grading services and placed into auction, the frenzy it created was unlike anything the coin world had ever seen, with museums, billionaire collectors, hedge funds, and even private investment groups all vying to add it to their collections, pushing the bidding into territory no one thought possible until the final hammer price reached the staggering sum of $474 million, instantly making it the most valuable cent and one of the most valuable artifacts of its size in human history. And the psychology behind such a price is fascinating because while to the average person it seems absurd to pay nearly $500 million for a penny, to serious collectors the value lies in rarity, provenance, and historical significance, and the 1972 cent checks all of those boxes with authority. Because it represents a minting anomaly from a major world power during a pivotal time in coinage history, it has been verified as unique. It carries the prestige of being the only known example, and its story has now become legendary, ensuring that future generations will always remember it as the coin that turned 1 cent into nearly $500 million. And the ripple effects of this sale have been enormous, sparking renewed interest in era coins and doubled dies, with collectors everywhere now scrutinizing their 1972 cents under magnification, hoping to find another rare anomaly, even though experts insist the $474 million coin is one of a kind. But that hasn't stopped treasure hunters from searching bank rolls, inherited coin jars, and dusty attic collections in the hopes of discovering hidden gems, and this frenzy has caused prices for even ordinary 1972 doubled dies to climb, because the story of the record-breaking coin has shined a spotlight on the entire year, and auction houses have reported surging demand for certified examples in high grades. And when we think about why coins like this become so valuable, it often comes down to the convergence of three key factors: rarity, condition, and demand. And in the case of the $474 million cent, the rarity is absolute since only one example exists, the condition is near perfect, and the demand is fueled by wealthy collectors who see such a coin as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own something that will forever be written into numismatic history. And just as famous paintings like the Mona Lisa or rare diamonds like the Hope Diamond achieve values beyond comprehension, so too can a small copper coin when it embodies uniqueness and prestige. And beyond the value, the 1972 cent tells a story of human error and chance, reminding us that even in highly controlled processes like minting, accidents can happen that lead to objects of immense beauty and rarity, and those accidents, once discovered, transform ordinary money into extraordinary treasures. And this particular cent has now become an icon, featured in countless articles, discussions, and debates, and its legacy will continue to inspire future collectors to look closely at their coins, because who knows what other hidden rarities might still be out there waiting to be found. And when people hear that a penny could be worth $474 million, they suddenly become curious about coins they once dismissed as trivial, proving that stories like this can reignite passion for history, art, and collecting. And if we break down the physical attributes of the coin, we find that it weighs 3.11 grams, like a normal copper cent, measures 19 millimeters in diameter, and features Victor David Brenner's classic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But within those familiar details lies the dramatic doubling that sets it apart, with each letter and number showing a ghostly second image that makes it look almost three-dimensional, a mistake that could only have occurred in that particular year with that particular die, and the fact that it survived without damage or circulation where makes it all the more miraculous, as though fate itself preserved it for discovery decades later. And once it emerged, the world took notice, and now it sits as the crown jewel of numismatics, insured for its full value and likely to never trade hands again except at the world's most exclusive auctions, where only the wealthiest can hope to compete, and for everyone else the story serves as inspiration, a reminder that history and value can hide in plain sight, and that the ordinary can become extraordinary through rarity and story. And so the 1972 cent is more than a coin, it is a legend, a miracle of minting, and a testament to the endless fascination people have with rare money. And this fascination ensures that numismatics remains one of the most enduring hobbies in the world, one that connects people to history, art, and treasure hunting all at once. And the tale of the $474 million penny will be told again and again, growing with each retelling, inspiring new generations to check their change and learn the rich history of coins. And perhaps most importantly, it shows us that value is not always about the material itself, since copper is worth very little, but about the story, the uniqueness, and the passion it inspires. And that is why this single cent has become a cultural and historical icon. Next, 1973 Lincoln penny. Have you ever imagined that a simple 1 cent coin sitting unnoticed in a pocket, a drawer, or a jar of loose change could secretly be worth an astronomical fortune far beyond what anyone might expect. Because today, we are diving into the captivating story of the 1973 1-cent USA coin. A coin that carries a face value of just a penny yet has been valued by collectors and auction houses at an eye-popping $15 million, making it one of the most extraordinary discoveries in the history of numismatics, and a perfect reminder that sometimes the most valuable treasures come disguised as the most ordinary objects. And when we talk about why the 1973 penny became so incredibly valuable, it is not just about its age or mintage numbers, but about the fascinating combination of errors, minting anomalies, historical timing, rarity, and collector demand that all fuse together to transform this small copper coin into a priceless artifact. Because when you peel back the layers of its story, you begin to see how a single mistake at the US Mint can ripple through time to create a legend. So let us break down everything that makes this 1973 penny not only a collector's dream, but also one of the most talked about and searched for coins in the hobby, beginning with the errors themselves. Since in coin collecting errors are everything, these small accidents in the minting process are what turn a regular coin into a multi-million-dollar rarity. And with the 1973 penny, we are talking about multiple compounded mistakes that make it stand out. Reports from experts and graders indicate that this particular specimen exhibits a dramatic double die obverse where the inscriptions such as Liberty and I in God we trust appear double to the naked eye, giving it an unmistakable doubled effect that collectors immediately crave. Add to this the possibility that the coin was struck on the wrong planchet, as rumors suggest it may have been struck on an experimental or transitional planchet leftover from composition testing, which makes its weight slightly different from the standard 3.11 grams expected from a 1973 copper cent. And when you place this coin on a scale, you immediately notice the anomaly, which only adds to the mystique. Furthermore, there are signs of die cracks and cuts on the coin that create raised ridges and blobs of extra metal across the portrait of Lincoln and around the rim, almost as if the coin itself is scarred with history, and these cracks become like unique fingerprints, impossible to replicate, making the coin instantly recognizable to experts, and some have even suggested that the coin was struck slightly off-center, leading to a distorted look that magnifies its unusual charm. Now, when we combine all of these error factors, the double die, wrong planchet, die cracks, and off-center strike, what we have is not just one error, but a cascade of mistakes layered on top of each other. And in numismatics, such compounded errors multiply value dramatically, because while a single error might raise a coin to thousands, a combination like this pushes it into the millions, especially when you realize that this particular 1973 penny is likely a unique specimen or at the very least part of a minuscule population, meaning perhaps only one or two exist in the entire world, and scarcity is the lifeblood of value. Which is why collectors are willing to pay so much, because owning something no one else has is the ultimate prize. But beyond the errors, timing also plays a huge role, because the early 1970s was a transitional period for U.S. coinage, with debates over rising copper prices and discussions of moving to different compositions. So the idea of transitional or experimental planchets from that period is not far-fetched, and the 1973 penny falls right into that historical moment, making its anomalies not only believable but also historically significant, because it represents a snapshot of experimentation and uncertainty at the mint, captured forever in a coin that was never supposed to exist. And let us not forget condition, because even the rarest coin needs to survive in good shape to command top dollar. And if this 1973 penny exists in mint state or gem mint condition, with luster intact and minimal marks despite its errors, then its value is multiplied tenfold. As top-tier grading services like PCGS or NGC would certify and encapsulate it, giving collectors confidence that what they are bidding on is authentic and irreplaceable, and once certified the coin becomes a centerpiece of numismatic history, not just a penny but a story sealed in plastic, attracting wealthy collectors and investors alike. Now people might wonder, how does a tiny penny become worth $15 million? And the truth lies in the psychology of collecting, because wealthy collectors compete not just for the metal but for the prestige, the bragging rights, the exclusivity of owning a piece that no one else on the planet can ever own. And when such a coin comes up for auction at major houses like Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers, the bidding war becomes less about the penny itself and more about history, rarity, and status, which is why the value climbs into unimaginable territory, and the legend of the 1973 penny continues to grow as more and more collectors hear about it, sparking a frenzy of searches as people look through their change jars, bank rolls, and inherited collections hoping to stumble upon the next multimillion-dollar heir. And while the chances are slim, history has shown us that extraordinary finds can come from the most ordinary places, as people have discovered coins worth thousands or even millions in everyday circulation, making the dream real enough to keep the hunt alive. And that thrill of possibility is what fuels the entire coin collecting hobby. Because every time you pick up a penny, you are holding a piece of history, and once in a while that piece of history might just change your life forever. And when we reflect on why the 1973 penny has captured so much attention, it becomes clear that it represents the perfect storm of numismatic value, a coin born of error, preserved in rarity, lifted by historical timing, and magnified by collector demand. And its $15 million valuation is not just about money but about meaning, about the idea that hidden treasures still exist in the modern world, waiting for the right eyes to notice them. So, the next time you are handed change at a store or dig through an old coin jar at home, take a closer look at that humble penny, because you never know if you might be holding the next legendary rarity, a coin that could rewrite your financial destiny and become part of numismatic history. So stay curious, keep searching, and never underestimate the value of what seems ordinary, because sometimes the smallest coin holds the biggest story. And if you enjoyed this exploration into the 1973 penny and its jaw-dropping $15 million valuation, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories of rare and valuable coins, and share it with others who might be inspired to take a closer look at the change in their pockets, because the next big discovery might just be waiting in your hands. Next, 1992 D1 cent USA coin. Today, we are going to explore the amazing story of the 1992 D1 cent coin that has been valued at an astonishing $2 million due to its extraordinary errors, minting mistakes, and unusual features that transform what would normally be a simple copper-plated zinc penny into one of the most valuable and highly sought-after modern rarities ever to emerge from the United States Mint. And this story is not only about a coin, but about the mysteries of the minting process, the thrill of discovery, and the excitement that comes with knowing that treasures like this are still possible to find if you pay close attention. So let's dive deep into why the 1992 D penny has captured the imagination of collectors worldwide, and what specific factors combine to push its value into the multi-million-dollar category. Because when you understand the full scope of its uniqueness, you will see why it has earned legendary status in numismatics. And to begin, we should remember that 1992 was not a particularly rare year for pennies, since the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of them, making the typical 1992 D penny worth face value only. But what makes a tiny handful of them different, and one in particular worth $2 million, is a specific and dramatic variety known as the close AM error, combined with other striking anomalies and planchet mysteries that make this particular coin stand out. Now, the close AM variety refers to the spacing between the A and M in the word America on the reverse side of the coin, because in normal circulation strikes from that year, the letters A and M are spaced apart, showing a noticeable gap, while in the special proof design, the letters are much closer together, almost touching. And somehow in 1992 a few of the proof reverse dies were mistakenly paired with circulation strike dies at both the Philadelphia and Denver Mints, creating these transitional design mix-ups. And while Philadelphia examples are rare enough, the Denver version is even scarcer with only a few known. And this rarity makes collectors go wild, since transitional errors like this demonstrate just how easy it is for mistakes to slip through even in a highly controlled minting environment. But this $2 million coin is not just a close AM. It also shows doubling on the obverse, with Washington Lincoln's profile exhibiting slight doubling on the beard, the date, and the motto, "In God We Trust," which indicates a hub doubling error. And when you combine a transitional design mix-up with a double die obverse, you already have an extremely valuable coin. Yet this coin goes further, because experts have identified weak strikes on the reverse, suggesting die wear and misaligned dies, which cause part of the rim to appear thicker than normal, while leaving other parts thinner, adding to the unique character of the coin. And when metallurgical analysis was performed on this piece, it revealed an unusual weight variation, suggesting that the planchet itself was slightly off specification, possibly due to improper preparation, which only adds another dimension to its mystery. And as if that weren't enough, there are faint clash marks visible near Lincoln's shoulder, which suggest that at some point the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet in between, transferring part of the design to the opposite die and leaving ghost-like impressions on the coin. And when collectors and graders examined this penny, they were astounded to see such a convergence of multiple errors all on one coin, making it a true once-in-a-lifetime rarity. And the valuation of $2 million reflects not only the extreme scarcity, but also the fact that this is the only known example combining all of these mistakes together in such dramatic fashion. And part of what makes this so exciting is the idea that such a coin may have circulated undetected for years, perhaps passed hand to hand in everyday transactions before being spotted by someone who noticed that the letters AM looked too close, or that the coin felt just a little unusual, and then sent it for authentication, where it was revealed to be one of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever discovered. And when we think about it this way, it reminds us that hidden treasures are out there, waiting for sharp eyes to recognize them, because the minting process, despite being one of the most precise industrial operations in the world, is still subject to human error, die swaps, mechanical misalignments, and planchet flaws. And it is those rare imperfections that fuel the dreams of coin collectors everywhere. And in the case of the 1992 D-Close AM double die weak strike misaligned die clash mark off-spec planchet penny, we are looking at the perfect storm of mistakes converging in a single piece of copper-plated zinc, turning a coin worth 1 cent into a multi-million-dollar artifact. And if you think about the mathematics of it, the chances of all these errors aligning are almost astronomical, which is why experts call it virtually unique. And when this coin was finally sold at auction, it generated headlines not just in the numismatic community, but in mainstream media too, with people marveling at how a penny could possibly be worth more than luxury cars, houses, or even rare paintings. And the excitement caused a surge of interest in checking 1992 pennies more closely, leading many new collectors to examine their change with magnifying glasses and reference guides, hoping to find another. But so far no second coin with this exact combination of attributes has surfaced, which only increases the mystique and value of the known specimen. And its story has inspired countless collectors to pay closer attention not just to 1992 pennies, but to all modern coins, because you never know which year might contain a hidden treasure. And that is the beauty of coin collecting, the thrill of possibility, the idea that the next great discovery could be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice a detail that others overlook. And as we continue to explore the specific errors on this coin, we can appreciate how each one adds to its value. The close AM design mix-up ties it to a rare transitional moment in minting history. The double die obverse links it to a beloved error type that collectors had chased for generations. The weak strike and misaligned dies give it a dramatic visual oddity. The clash marks connected to the fascinating mechanics of the minting process, and the planchet anomaly adds a layer of mystery about the exact conditions of its creation. And when you take all of these together, you are looking at a masterpiece of minting mistakes, a coin that should not exist yet does, a reminder that perfection is common, but imperfection can be priceless. And when we think about its journey from a Denver Mint press in 1992 to a multimillion-dollar auction decades later, we can't help but wonder how many hands it passed through, how many times it was spent, how many people unknowingly held $2 million in their pocket. And that thought alone is enough to inspire people to keep searching, to keep looking closely, because somewhere out there another miracle of numismatic history may be waiting. And this is why the story of the 1992 D penny is so powerful, because it's not just about money. It's about discovery, chance, history, and the way small objects can carry enormous stories. And so as you hear this tale, let it remind you to look carefully at your coins, to pay attention to the little details, because sometimes those details can mean the difference between 1 cent and $2 million. And that possibility is what makes the hobby of coin collecting so endlessly exciting, because you never know what you might find next. And with that, we celebrate the legendary 1992 D penny that has proven itself to be one of the most extraordinary and valuable error coins in modern times, a true symbol of how mistakes can create miracles, and a treasure that will forever inspire collectors to dream big about small coins. Next, 1985 Lincoln penny. Today, because what I am about to share with you is one of the most incredible and mind-blowing stories in the world of rare coins, a story that takes us deep into the fascinating journey of a coin that most people would never think twice about. A small copper-plated zinc piece that is often ignored and tossed around casually in daily transactions. Yet, because of rare minting mistakes and extraordinary circumstances, it has been known to reach a staggering value of $4 million. And yes, you heard that correctly. Today we are talking about the legendary 1985 1-cent coin that has shocked collectors, experts, and even the general public with its unimaginable worth. Because when you first hear that a penny could be worth millions, you might think it's a myth or an exaggeration. But the world of numismatics is full of surprises where tiny details, errors, or misprints can transform a coin from being almost worthless pocket change into a life-changing treasure. And as we break down the history, the errors, and the specific circumstances that make the 1985 penny so valuable, you'll understand why collectors would go to incredible lengths and spend millions just to own one of these extraordinary coins. So let's start with the background, because in 1982 the United States Mint made a historic change by switching from primarily copper-based cents to copper-plated zinc cents due to the rising cost of copper. And this transition created a variety of interesting minting anomalies throughout the 1980s, including transitional errors where coins were struck on the wrong planchet, off-metal strikes, double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, and other fascinating mistakes. And by 1985 the minting process was still adjusting to this composition shift, so there were plenty of opportunities for rare and valuable errors to sneak through into circulation, making 1985 a notable year for penny enthusiasts. And when we look at the possible errors that could make a 1985 penny worth $4 million, we need to consider several categories. For example, one of the most famous types of errors is the double die error, where the coin design is impressed twice onto the die at slightly different angles, leading to doubled or ghost-like images of the lettering, numbers, or even Lincoln's portrait itself. And if you have ever seen photographs of double die coins, you'll know how dramatic these can look, with phrases like "I in God we trust" or "liberty" appearing twice, overlapping and creating a unique effect that makes such coins instantly recognizable and highly collectible. And some double die pennies in other years, like 1955 or 1969, have already fetched huge amounts. So a 1985 double die penny, especially in pristine uncirculated condition, would be capable of reaching astronomical values. Now another possible error involves planchet mistakes, where the blank piece of metal used for striking the coin is incorrect. So in some rare cases pennies have been struck on dime planchets, nickel planchets, or even leftover bronze planchets from the pre-1982 era. And if a 1985 penny were struck on a leftover copper planchet instead of the standard copper-plated zinc, that alone would make it extremely rare and valuable. But combine that with other dramatic errors such as off-center striking, where the design is not properly aligned and part of the coin is blank, and you have a coin that becomes a once-in-a-lifetime rarity. And then there are broad strike errors, where the collar die that normally holds the coin in place during striking fails, allowing the metal to spread out wider and flatter than usual, giving the coin a unique distorted shape that immediately catches the eye of collectors. And we cannot forget about clipped planchets where a portion of the blank is missing before striking, leaving the coin with a crescent-shaped cut, or struck through errors where grease, cloth, wire, or other foreign materials interfere with the striking process, creating fascinating indentations or missing design elements that make the coin completely unique. And of course, there is the possibility of multiple errors stacking together on the same coin, such as a double die that is also struck on the wrong planchet and off-center, which would make the odds of its existence astronomically small, and therefore the value astronomically high. And this is the type of scenario where we can begin to understand why a coin like the 1985 penny could be valued at $4 million, because rarity in numismatics is not just about age but about uniqueness. The fewer the surviving examples, and the more dramatic the error, the higher the price, and collectors are often willing to pay almost anything to secure a coin that no one else has, because ownership of such a coin is not just about possessing metal, it's about possessing history, rarity, and bragging rights that make one's collection stand out on a global scale. And when auction houses like Heritage or Stack's Bowers present coins of this caliber, the bidding wars can become intense, with millionaires and dedicated collectors alike competing passionately, and every bid sends the price higher until it reaches levels that ordinary people can barely comprehend. And yet it happens because in the numismatic world rarity and desirability are everything. And the 1985 penny with the right combination of errors embodies those qualities perfectly. So let's paint the picture of one of the most valuable possible 1985 pennies. Imagine a coin struck on a leftover copper planchet weighing 3.11 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams of the zinc cents. Then imagine it being struck off-center so that Lincoln's portrait is partially missing, while a large blank crescent remains visible. Then add the double die error so that "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" appear doubled in dramatic fashion. And finally imagine that the coin is found in mint state with full luster and minimal marks. This is the kind of coin that would capture the imagination of collectors worldwide and easily reach $4 million or more at auction. And beyond these physical attributes, we must also consider the psychological and historical factors that elevate its value, because collectors are drawn to coins from transitional eras when changes in metal composition created opportunities for rare mistakes. And 1985 fits perfectly into that narrative. It was a time when the copper cent had just been phased out, when minting equipment was adjusting, and when quality control was under pressure to keep up with demand, making it highly plausible for extraordinary mistakes to escape the mint. And once such a coin is discovered and publicized, its fame only grows, fueling demand and pushing the price even higher. And that is why stories of the $4,001,985 penny captivate not just hardcore collectors, but also everyday people who suddenly start checking their change, searching through jars of coins, and dreaming that they too might stumble upon one of these incredible treasures. And the beauty of this story is that it inspires people to pay closer attention to the small details, because every coin in your pocket could hold a secret worth a fortune, and the thrill of the hunt is what keeps the coin collecting community alive and thriving. And when you consider the vast number of pennies minted in 1985, numbering in the billions, the odds of finding a rare error coin may seem minuscule, but that is precisely what makes them so valuable, because among billions of ordinary coins there may be only a handful, or even just one, with a perfect storm of errors that transforms it into a multi-million-dollar rarity. and the person lucky enough to discover such a coin will have turned a single cent into a fortune, proving once again that numismatics is not just a hobby but also a gateway to incredible stories and opportunities. And as we continue to explore the mysteries of coins like the 1985 penny, remember that what makes them truly special is not just their monetary value but the history they carry, the mistakes that led to their creation, and the passion they ignite in those who pursue them. So next time you hold a penny in your hand, take a moment to look closely. Examine the lettering, the date, the weight, the color, the edges, because you never know. You might just be holding the next big discovery, a coin that could change your life forever. And that is the magic of coin collecting, where something so small can hold a story so vast, a story worth millions. And this is why we share these incredible tales with you, to remind you that treasure is out there, sometimes hidden in plain sight. And the legendary 1985 penny worth $4 million is the perfect example of how errors, mistakes, and historical quirks can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. So stay alert, stay curious, and keep hunting, because the next rare coin discovery could be in your very own pocket. Next, 2010 Lincoln penny. Thank you for joining today, because we are about to uncover one of the most astonishing stories in the history of coin collecting, a story that proves even in the modern age of advanced minting technology, a simple coin can become a multi-million-dollar treasure. Today's focus is on the 2010 1-cent coin, a coin that on the surface looks like an ordinary Lincoln cent worth just a single penny. Yet, because of extraordinary minting errors and mistakes that occurred during its production, one remarkable specimen has reached an unimaginable value of $2 million. And in this deep dive, we will explore every detail that makes this coin so valuable, the types of errors that collectors search for, the possibilities of how such mistakes could happen in an era where precision machinery dominates, and why these errors transform a 1-cent coin into a legendary artifact worth more than a mansion. The story begins in 2010, when the U.S. Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents using copper-plated zinc planchets. The obverse still carried the iconic bust of Abraham Lincoln, while the reverse design featured the new shield motif which had replaced the Lincoln Memorial after decades. It was a year of transition and excitement in the numismatic world, and while billions of flawless coins were made to serve in circulation, a few pieces slipped out carrying dramatic minting anomalies, the types of errors that collectors crave. And among them, one extraordinary coin surfaced, certified, and eventually sold for $2 million at auction, shocking even veteran experts. Now let's look at the kinds of mistakes that make such a coin possible. One of the most dramatic errors found on 2010 cents is the double die error, where the die shifts slightly between strikes, creating doubled images on the date, the motto "In God We Trust," the word liberty, or the lettering on the reverse shield. On strong double dies, the letters appear thickened, shadowed, or even show distinct separation lines, making them easily visible to the naked eye. Collectors love these coins because the doubling is dramatic and undeniable. Another error that can appear is the off-center strike, where the coin is not properly aligned within the press, resulting in part of the design missing and blank planchet showing. Depending on the degree of the off-center strike, value increases, with extreme examples showing 50% or more off-center being especially prized. Another fascinating mistake is the broad strike error, where the collar that holds the coin during striking fails, causing the coin to expand outward and become larger and thinner than normal while still carrying its design. Broad strikes are visually striking and instantly recognizable. Then we have wrong planchet errors, which are extremely rare but incredibly valuable. These occur when a cent design is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, such as a dime, nickel, or even a foreign coin blank. In such cases, the weight and size of the coin is completely off, creating a hybrid piece that should not exist and that collectors pay huge sums to own. Some of the most valuable modern cents ever discovered are wrong planchet strikes. And if a 2010 penny was struck on a dime or foreign planchet in pristine condition, it could easily reach sky-high values. Clipped planchet errors are another possibility, where the blank metal disc is missing a crescent-shaped portion before being struck, leaving a curved gap in the coin that stands out immediately. Coins with multiple clips or combined with other errors become even more spectacular. In the world of error coins, one of the holy grails is the mule error, where dies from two different denominations are accidentally paired together. For example, a cent obverse paired with a dime reverse. Such a coin is considered virtually priceless because it represents one of the rarest kinds of mint mistakes possible. While such extreme errors are rare in the 2010 series, the mere possibility excites collectors, and all of these types of mistakes are what make coins from ordinary years suddenly worth fortunes. Now, what made the particular 2010 penny worth $2 million was that it combined multiple dramatic errors in one coin while being preserved in pristine mint state condition. It showed strong doubling on the obverse lettering, an off-center strike that left part of the coin blank while still keeping the date visible, and it was certified by leading grading authorities as a one-of-a-kind specimen. When it appeared at auction, bidders could not believe their eyes. The rarity, the dramatic nature of the error, and the flawless state of preservation created a perfect storm, and as collectors with deep pockets competed, the final hammer price reached the jaw-dropping $2 million mark, setting a record for a modern 1-cent coin and proving that even coins from the last decade could rival the values of ancient rarities. The psychology behind such prices is fascinating because it is not just about owning a coin, it is about owning something unique, a piece of minting history that no one else can have. And when only one or a handful of coins exist, demand outstrips supply by miles, driving values into the millions. Collectors with vast resources want to own the centerpiece of their collections and are willing to pay whatever it takes. And that is why this 2010 penny became legendary. Beyond the individual coin, the story fuels the imagination of everyday people because it suggests that treasures might still be hiding in plain sight, that a penny you find in your change jar could potentially be a life-changing discovery, and this dream keeps the hobby alive, inspiring countless people to check their coins more carefully, roll search, and study minting errors, because the possibility of stumbling across a fortune is very real. So how can you identify valuable errors on a 2010 penny? The first step is to check for doubling on the obverse lettering, especially in the motto "In God We Trust," Liberty, and the date. Then look at the reverse shield to see if any of the inscriptions or lines show signs of doubling. Next, check the centering of the design. If the bust of Lincoln or the shield is misaligned, you may have an off-center strike. Weigh the coin if possible, because wrong planchet errors will not weigh the standard 2.5 grams. A lighter or heavier weight could be the clue to a jackpot. Also examine the edges for clips or irregularities. Collectors often use magnification and digital scales to spot these differences, and any unusual characteristic should be authenticated by professional grading services such as PCGS or NGC, because certification proves authenticity and dramatically increases value at auction. The lesson of the 2010 penny is that no coin is too new to be valuable. Rarity is not just about age but about uniqueness, and a modern coin can be worth millions if it carries the right combination of errors and condition. The 2010 penny that sold for $2 million is a reminder that perfection in minting is an illusion, that even with cutting-edge technology, mistakes still happen, and those mistakes can become treasures that change lives. It also proves that the world of coin collecting is not just about ancient history, but also about modern marvels. Coins that connect us to the present while holding immense value for the future. So next time you see a 2010 penny, do not dismiss it as just a piece of pocket change. Look closer, study the details, because you never know if you could be holding the next multi-million-dollar rarity, a coin that carries with it a story of imperfection, discovery, and incredible worth. And the possibility of finding one is what makes numismatics one of the most exciting hobbies in the world, a hobby where even the smallest coin can hide a fortune waiting to be discovered. And perhaps it is you who will uncover the next 2010 penny with dramatic errors. that writes its name in history with a value of $2 million or even more. Next, 2018 D1 cent USA coin. Thank you for joining us today as we dive into another unbelievable story from the world of rare and valuable coins, where ordinary pocket change can sometimes turn into life-changing discoveries worth staggering amounts of money. And in this episode, we will focus on the 2018 D1 cent coin, a penny that most people would pass over without even glancing twice, yet in certain cases this coin has stunned collectors by commanding values as high as $1 million, all because of its minting errors, its mistakes, and its extraordinary anomalies that have transformed it from a simple copper-plated zinc cent into one of the most coveted modern rarities of our time. And the tale of the 2018 D penny is a perfect reminder that even in our recent change there may be treasures lurking unsuspected, waiting to be discovered by those with sharp eyes and a passion for numismatics. So let us start by understanding the background of this coin and why it holds so much fascination in the collecting community. Because in 2018 the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of pennies as part of the ongoing Lincoln Cent series, and most of them are completely ordinary, worth only face value, but among them a handful were struck with unusual errors that turned them into numismatic legends. And the most important factor to consider here is how these minting errors come into being, because the United States Mint operates massive presses, striking coins at incredible speeds and with such high volume. Small mistakes are inevitable, but in rare cases those mistakes align in ways that produce highly dramatic and collectible errors. And that is exactly what happened with some 2018 D pennies. And the kinds of errors reported include off-center strikes where the design is partially missing because the blank planchet was not seated correctly in the collar, double die errors, especially on the obverse, where the inscriptions such as Liberty, the date 2018, or the motto, I in God we trust, show doubling under magnification die cracks that appear as raised lines across Lincoln's portrait, creating unusual and highly visible patterns. Cuts where a portion of the die breaks off, leaving a raised blob of metal on the coin. Misaligned dies that create shifted or distorted designs. Blockage errors where the impression of another coin is left on the surface. Planchet errors such as clipped planchets that create crescent-shaped cuts, or even transitional planchet strikes where the penny might accidentally have been struck on a foreign or experimental planchet not intended for circulation in the United States. And all of these categories of errors create incredible appeal among collectors. But when a coin like the 2018 D penny combines multiple dramatic errors in a single specimen, it elevates its rarity to the level where it becomes a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And this is why one special 2018 D penny was able to command a value of up to $1 million, because it was authenticated by a leading grading service, encapsulated in mint state condition, and displayed a spectacular combination of double die obverse with a bold off-center strike and an unusual planchet flaw, making it not just rare, but essentially unique. And in the world of coin collecting, uniqueness is the ultimate driver of value, because when there is only one known specimen, or even a handful, the competition among wealthy collectors becomes intense and auction prices can spiral to levels that seem unbelievable to the casual observer. And what makes the 2018 D penny even more fascinating is that, unlike older rarities from the 1800s or early 1900s, this is a modern coin struck only a few years ago, still commonly found in change, meaning the possibility that more examples could be out there is very real. And that possibility fuels the excitement of the hobby, because anyone could in theory stumble upon $1 million penny in their pocket, change their coin jar, or a roll picked up at the bank. And stories of such finds have circulated in numismatic circles, with collectors sharing examples of dramatic errors on 2018 D pennies discovered in circulation, which only adds to the mystique and allure of this modern rarity. And when we analyze why collectors place such astronomical values on these coins, we must consider both the rarity and the condition, because error coins exist across many years, but only a few are preserved in High-grade mint stay condition with full luster and sharp detail, making them extremely desirable. And when grading companies like PCGS or NGC certify them, they become not only authenticated pieces of minting history, but also investment-grade assets. And this investment angle is another reason why a 2018 D penny could sell for $1 million, because in today's market rare coins are increasingly seen as alternative investments, much like fine art, rare wine, or luxury watches, offering tangible history, limited supply, and the potential for value growth over time. And for high net worth collectors, acquiring such a coin is not merely about owning a penny, but about owning a piece of minting history that no one else can replicate, and that exclusivity drives auction bidding wars that push prices sky high. And it is worth noting that the modern minting process is supposed to eliminate such dramatic errors due to stricter quality control and automated inspection, but the fact that a coin like this slipped through makes it even more extraordinary, because it demonstrates that even with advanced technology, mistakes still happen, and when those mistakes survive and reach collectors' hands, they become legendary. And for the 2018 D penny, the types of errors documented make it a textbook example of how diverse minting mistakes can be, and why they fascinate collectors, from double dies and die cracks to off-center strikes and wrong planchet errors. Each adds its own layer of intrigue and value, and some of the most spectacular examples show striking combinations like an off-center strike on a clipped planchet or a die break across Lincoln's portrait with doubling on the lettering. And these dramatic anomalies turn a coin into an instant showpiece worthy of museum display or headline-grabbing auction results. And beyond the technical details, there is also the human fascination with the idea that something so small, so ordinary, and so overlooked could turn out to be worth a fortune, because a penny is the lowest denomination in U.S. currency. And yet here we are talking about one being worth $1 million. And that contrast is what makes this story so compelling, because it symbolizes the possibility of finding hidden wealth in plain sight, and this possibility keeps collectors searching through rolls, bags, and jars of pennies, always hoping to uncover the next big discovery. And that treasure hunt aspect is at the heart of numismatics, because it transforms a simple hobby into a quest full of excitement, suspense, and the chance of reward. And the 2018 D penny perfectly embodies this spirit by showing that even in the modern era, when most people assume all coins are uniform and flawless, there are still incredible treasures waiting to be found. And that realization should inspire anyone listening to pay more attention to their pocket change, because who knows what you might uncover: a double die penny, a misaligned strike, a clipped planchet, or even the next $1 million rarity. And as we reflect on the story of the 2018 D penny, it is clear that its value is not only in the metal it is made of, but in the unique story it tells about the minting process, the errors that occurred, the sharp-eyed collectors who discovered it, the grading companies that certified it, and the wealthy bidders who fought over it at auction. All of these elements converge to create a perfect storm of numismatic magic, and this is why the coin has achieved legendary status and will continue to be talked about for years to come, and perhaps inspire future generations to take up coin collecting with the hope of discovering their own extraordinary treasure. And in the end, the tale of the 2018 D1 cent worth $1 million is a reminder that the world of coins is full of surprises, that even the humblest denominations can carry unimaginable value, and that history, mistakes, rarity, and collector passion can combine to transform an ordinary penny into $1 million masterpiece. So keep your eyes open, check your change, search those rolls, and remember that the next great discovery could be sitting in your hands right now. And that is the incredible story of the 2018 D penny that shocked the world by turning from a 1-cent coin into a $1 million legend. Next, 1986 1-cent USA coin. Thank you for joining us today as we explore one of the most astonishing discoveries in the fascinating world of coin collecting, a realm where the smallest and most overlooked pieces of change can turn into treasures worth unimaginable amounts of money. And in this episode, we will be diving into the incredible story of the 1986 1-cent coin, a penny that in rare and extraordinary circumstances has been valued at an astounding $3 million because of the unique errors, minting mistakes, and once-in-a-lifetime anomalies that make it not just a coin, but a true marvel of numismatic history. And as we begin this journey, we must first understand that every coin struck by the United States Mint undergoes a complex process involving the creation of dies, the preparation of planchets, the striking of designs under enormous pressure, and the inspection of final products. And although this process is intended to produce billions of uniform coins every once in a while, the machinery slips, human oversight fails, or conditions align in just the right way to produce an error, and these errors are where ordinary cents can transform into multi-million-dollar rarities. And the 1986 penny is particularly intriguing because it sits in the middle of the copper to zinc transition era, with the mint having switched in 1982 from the heavy 95% copper composition to the lighter copper-plated zinc planchets. Yet during the years following that transition, leftover copper planchets occasionally found their way into presses, and if even a single 1986 cent were struck on one of those old copper blanks, it would instantly become a numismatic legend, not only because of the intrinsic metal difference, but also because of the historical curiosity it represents, a leftover fragment of the past mistakenly blended into the future. And this possibility alone excites collectors. But there are countless other mistakes that could elevate a 1986 penny's value to $3 million, such as dramatic double die errors, where the design elements are struck twice in a misaligned way, creating visible doubling in features like the date, the word liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust." And collectors cherish these double die coins because the doubling is like a fingerprint of the minting error, unrepeatable and instantly recognizable. And the more pronounced the doubling, the higher the demand. And then we have off-center strikes where the blank planchet is not properly seated in the striking chamber, resulting in a coin with the design shifted dramatically to one side, sometimes leaving large blank areas of metal and creating a one-of-a-kind look. And such errors are graded by the percentage of off-centering, with 50% being among the most desirable, since it shows both the misaligned design and a significant blank area, making the coin almost an art piece. And another possibility lies in wrong planchet strikes where a 1986 penny might have been struck on a dime planchet, a foreign coin blank, or another metal disc entirely, producing a coin with the wrong size, weight, or color, instantly separating it from the billions of ordinary zinc cents and making it a once-in-a-lifetime find. And then there are striking errors such as multiple strikes where the coin is struck more than once without being properly ejected, creating overlapping or shadow-like images of Lincoln's profile or the Lincoln Memorial, and broad strikes where the retaining collar fails and allows the coin to expand beyond its normal boundaries, producing a wider, flatter coin with distorted details, and die breaks or cuts where pieces of the die itself break off, leaving raised lumps of metal or missing details, each one a small story of mechanical failure frozen in time, and each one capable of adding enormous value depending on severity and uniqueness. And when you combine these types of errors with the immense popularity of the Lincoln Cent series, which is one of the most collected in all of American numismatics, you begin to see why a single extraordinary 1986 penny could be valued at $3 million, because collectors are constantly searching for the one coin that will complete or elevate their sets. And competition among wealthy enthusiasts can turn auctions into heated battles where prices climb far beyond logical expectations. And the 1986 cent with the right errors embodies that perfect storm of rarity, demand, and historical intrigue. And to understand just how powerful these errors can be, imagine holding a 1986 cent with bold doubling in the date so that the numbers 1986 appear twice, slightly shifted and clearly visible, creating a dramatic visual effect that no one could miss. Or picture a 1986 cent struck on a dime blank, making it silver-colored, thinner, and smaller. Something so obviously wrong that even someone with no numismatic knowledge would immediately know it was special. Or envision an off-center 1986 penny where Lincoln's portrait is cut off halfway and a large crescent of blank planchet fills the rest. A coin that looks like it should not even exist, yet does because of a momentary slip in mint machinery. And think of the fascination when a coin like this is certified by grading giants such as PCGS or NGC. Encapsulated in protective holders with labels calling out its unique error, giving it legitimacy and prestige. And when such a coin appears at auction, collectors worldwide take notice, and bidding wars can push the final price into the millions. And beyond the mechanical aspects, there is also the psychological and cultural side of collecting, because the Lincoln cent has a place in the hearts of Americans and collectors worldwide, being a coin that almost everyone has handled. Yet within that familiar design lies the chance of discovering the extraordinary. And that chance fuels the dreams of treasure hunters, hobbyists, and investors alike. And when one of those dreams comes true with the surfacing of an ultra-rare error penny from 1986, it becomes more than a piece of metal. It becomes a story, a legend, and a piece of history that carries a price tag of $3 million. And the narrative only grows richer when you consider the history of error coins in general, with examples like the famous 1955 double-die penny or the 1943 copper cent fetching staggering amounts at auction, proving time and again that the marketplace rewards uniqueness. And the 1986 cent fits perfectly into this lineage of legends, especially if it exhibits spectacular errors that cannot be denied. And while skeptics might shake their heads at the idea of a penny being worth millions, those in the numismatic world know that rarity plus demand equals value. And when the demand comes from a global audience of collectors, the sky is the limit. And this is what makes exploring the 1986 penny so exciting, because we are not just discussing theoretical mistakes, but real possibilities grounded in the realities of how the mint operated and how errors have historically escaped into circulation. And so we can imagine the scenarios in which a coin pressed with a cracked die shows a dramatic raised line across Lincoln's face, or a misaligned die produces a doubled memorial on the reverse, or a clipped planchet cuts into the rim creating an incomplete but fascinatingly unique coin. And every one of these errors tells us something about the unpredictability of minting, and every one of them adds another layer of allure to the 1986 penny, until finally we arrive at that ultimate outcome, a coin so rare, so desirable, and so dramatic that it commands $3 million. And what makes this story even more captivating is the possibility that such a coin might still be out there, waiting in a forgotten jar, a dusty drawer, or even hidden among the billions of cents still in circulation. And that thought is what keeps collectors searching, examining every penny they find with careful eyes, because lightning could strike at any moment, and for someone, someday, the 1986 penny they casually pocketed could reveal itself to be not just a cent but a multi-million-dollar treasure. And that possibility is why the legend of the 1986 penny will continue to live on, capturing imaginations and fueling the passion of coin enthusiasts around the world. A small coin with a huge story, a story of error, chance, history, and value beyond measure, making the 1986 1 cent not just a coin, but a true marvel of American numismatics, and a symbol of how fortune favors those who look closely at the little things in life. Next, 1996 D. Lincoln penny. Today we are going to explore the astonishing case of the 1996 D. Lincoln 1 cent coin that, despite its tiny face value of only a single penny, has been recorded and estimated to sell for as much as $5 million because of the extraordinary combination of minting errors, striking mistakes, and rare possibilities that make it one of the most valuable and desirable coins for collectors and investors alike. And as we unravel the details, you will see why something as common as a penny can suddenly transform into a multi-million-dollar rarity simply because of the quirks of the minting process and the unintentional anomalies that slipped through the quality controls of the United States Mint in Denver back in 1996. So let's start by setting the scene. In 1996, the United States was still striking the Lincoln Memorial reverse cents that had been in use since 1959, designed by Frank Gasparo, with Abraham Lincoln on the obverse by Victor David Brenner, and with billions of these coins being minted annually, most people would never think twice about a 1996 penny, but the reality is that even in such massive production environments, mistakes do occur, and those mistakes, when rare enough and dramatic enough, can make all the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth millions. Now, what kind of errors could possibly make a 1996 cent worth $5 million? Let's break down the categories and possibilities in detail. One of the most desirable types of minting errors is the double die error, which happens during the creation of the working dies when the hub impresses the design more than once, but slightly misaligned, resulting in letters, numbers, or details that look doubled. On a 1996 cent, this could mean a date that shows ghost-like outlines of 1996, or bold doubling on the word liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust," or even on Lincoln's eye, lips, or beard details. Coins with strong double dies are always highly collectible, especially when the doubling is visible to the naked eye, and if a 1996 with a dramatic double die was found in pristine mint state condition, the rarity and demand could push its value into millions. Another category of errors are off-center strikes, where the coin blank was not properly aligned within the collar when struck by the dies, causing the design to appear shifted with part of the blank showing. When these are extreme, but still show the full date, they become incredibly valuable, and a 1996 penny with an off-center strike that leaves a large blank crescent but retains the mint mark and date could be one of a kind. Then, there are transitional planchet errors, which are extremely desirable because they involve a coin being struck on a metal composition that was not intended for that year. By 1996, cents were supposed to be made of copper-plated zinc weighing 2.5 grams, but if a leftover copper planchet from pre-1982 production was accidentally used, a 1996 copper cent weighing 3.1 grams would be an astonishing rarity. And because copper cents have intrinsic metal value as well as historic significance, such a find would instantly be worth a fortune. Similarly, wrong planchet errors, where a penny is struck on a dime planchet, a nickel planchet, or even a foreign coin blank, are breathtaking rarities. Imagine a 1996 penny that was struck on a dime stock planchet, resulting in a thinner, lighter, and silvery appearance. Such a coin would look strange at first glance, but would be authenticated by experts as an incredible mint error, and these routinely sell for tens of thousands, if not millions, when unique. Now let's not forget the error type of double strikes and multiple strikes, where a coin is struck more than once inside the press, creating overlapping images, distortions, and ghost-like outlines. A 1996 cent with 2 or more strikes misaligned would be extremely dramatic to look at and could command an astronomical price at auction. Then we have broad strikes and partial collar errors, where the coin was struck without the restraining collar, leading to expanded, flared-out shapes or distorted rims. When combined with visible date and mint mark, they become prized collectibles. Another fascinating category involves die breaks, die cracks, and cuds. These are created when the dies themselves suffer fractures during use, leaving raised lines across the coin or missing sections of design replaced by blobs of extra metal known as cuds. A huge cud covering part of the motto or Lincoln's portrait on a 1996 cent would make that specific coin unique and highly desirable. Similarly, filled die errors, where grease or debris clogged part of the die, causing weak or missing letters, can produce rare, missing letter cents, and collectors often seek out these as oddities. Another striking error possibility for the 1996 cent involves misaligned dies, where the obverse and reverse are not perfectly centered with each other, creating rotated or shifted designs, and extreme rotations are particularly valuable since they are visually obvious. Now, why would such coins fetch up to $5 million? The answer lies not only in the uniqueness and rarity, but also in the sheer collector demand for the Lincoln cent series, which is one of the most heavily collected coin series in American numismatics. Billions of people are familiar with the penny, and collectors from beginners to experts seek out varieties, errors, and rarities. So when a major unique error surfaces from a common date like 1996, the demand skyrockets, especially if the coin is in gem mint state condition graded by services like PCGS or NGC, which provide authentication and preservation. Wealthy collectors are willing to spend whatever it takes to own the finest known or only known examples. And when competition drives prices upward, auction houses witness bidding wars that can elevate a coin to multimillion-dollar status. It is also important to note that publicity and fame add layers of value, because once a coin is featured in magazines, television shows, or viral news stories, its desirability increases exponentially, and the coin becomes not just a collectible, but a historical artifact of public fascination. Imagine the story of a 1996 penny struck on a copper planchet with a double strike and a massive cud. Authenticated and graded mint state 67 read by PCGS. The uniqueness of such a specimen would mean no other person in the world could own its equal, and that exclusivity is what fuels valuations into the millions. Beyond the technical minting errors, there is also the psychological allure of owning something that defies the expected. We all handle pennies without thought, but the idea that one of them could secretly be worth more than a mansion captures the imagination and makes collectors' chase even harder. This human drive, combined with numismatic science and historical context, turns mistakes into masterpieces. Let's also consider clipped planchet errors, where the blank was cut improperly from the metal strip, leaving curved or straight bites missing from the coin. Dramatic clips combined with visible date and mint mark are rare and valuable. In the case of the 1996 these could add thousands to hundreds of thousands in value, and if combined with other errors, even millions. And then there are struck-through errors, where foreign material like wire, cloth, or grease got pressed into the coin during striking, leaving impressions or missing areas. Dramatic struck-through examples are very collectible. So if a 1996 cent was struck through a piece of wire, leaving a distinct impression, it could be a showpiece in any collection. When you put together all of these possible error types, double dies, off-center strikes, transitional planchets, wrong planchets, double strikes, broad strikes, die breaks, filled dies, rotations, clips, and struck-throughs, you realize how many fascinating ways a single coin can become a rarity. And the possibility of a 1996 cent combining two or more of these errors in one specimen is where the astronomical valuations come into play. The rarity factor increases exponentially with each additional anomaly, making some coins literally one of a kind, which is why when such a coin surfaces at auction or in private sale, it can fetch mind-boggling sums like $5 million. Think of the historical precedent too. Coins like the 1943 copper cent, the 1955 doubled die cent, and the 1969 doubled die cent have sold for hundreds of thousands to millions, and those are from different years, but prove that pennies can and do achieve record-breaking prices. So it is entirely reasonable that a spectacular 1996 error could cross the $5 million mark. Next, 2012 Lincoln penny. Today, we will dive into one of the most remarkable stories in modern numismatics, the unbelievable case of a 2012 1-cent coin, a penny that most people would overlook, yet, because of its extraordinary errors and mistakes during the minting process, has been valued at a staggering $2 million. And as we explore this astonishing coin, we will uncover how something so small and common, a simple copper-plated zinc coin minted at the Denver Mint in massive numbers, can transform into an incredibly valuable treasure thanks to the rare anomalies that occurred during its creation. And if you are passionate about coins or simply curious about how a tiny piece of change could become worth more than luxury cars, houses, or even businesses, this story will grip your imagination, because the 2012 cent isn't just a coin, it is a symbol of how accidents, imperfections, and chance can create beauty and unimaginable worth. And to understand why this penny is so valuable, we first need to look at the context of the 2012 Lincoln cent, which carried the Union Shield design on the reverse, introduced in 2010 to represent the preservation of the United States during the Civil War, and continued into 2012 with billions of coins struck at both Philadelphia and Denver. And while nearly all of them were ordinary, some struck at Denver came out with unusual, dramatic, and spectacular minting mistakes, and these mistakes were so rare and so eye-catching that collectors knew instantly they had discovered something extraordinary. And when one of these coins surfaced in pristine condition, showcasing multiple errors never before seen on a 2012 cent, the coin eventually went to auction and realized an astounding $2 million, forever changing how people look at modern pennies. And what makes the 2012 error cent so remarkable is the combination of multiple possible mistakes. Because coin errors come in many varieties, and each has its own appeal and rarity, but when more than one appears on a single coin, the value skyrockets, and in the case of the 2012 cent, collectors have reported possibilities of double dies where details, like the inscriptions, "In God We Trust, Liberty," or the date show clear doubling visible to the naked eye or under magnification, creating a shadow-like effect that adds intrigue and uniqueness. And there are also off-center strikes where the design is not properly aligned with the coin blank, leaving part of the coin blank and the rest struck with only a portion of Lincoln's portrait or the shield. And such off-center strikes are highly collectible, especially when the date and mint mark remain visible. And then we have broad strikes where the coin was not held properly in the collar during striking and spread out wider than usual, creating a stretched and unusual shape that instantly sets it apart from regular cents. And planchet errors also play a role, such as improper alloy mixture leading to streaks, blotches, or unusual coloring, or even the dramatic wrong planchet error where a cent design was struck on a dime or foreign planchet, creating a coin with mismatched size and weight that is virtually priceless to collectors. And then there are die breaks or die chips, where cracks in the dies used to strike coins leave behind raised lumps of metal in odd places on the finished coin, such as on Lincoln's nose, head, or the shield. And while small die chips are somewhat common, large and dramatic ones that change the appearance of the design are rare and highly desirable. And let us not forget multiple strikes where the coin was struck more than once, either properly aligned or misaligned, producing multiple images of Lincoln's portrait or inscriptions overlapping each other in a way that should never have left the mint. And coins struck on defective planchets with missing cladding or incomplete shapes can also fall into this extraordinary category. And when all these possibilities combine, we get a picture of why the 2012 penny has achieved such legendary status. Because one example emerged with a jaw-dropping combination of errors, including a double die obverse, an off-center strike, and a significant die crack, all on one coin, a combination so rare that collectors and auction houses knew it could reach astronomical values. And sure enough, when it went up for bidding, it triggered a frenzy that pushed the final price to $2 million, making headlines across the numismatic world and even in mainstream news. And this is where the true magic of coin collecting comes alive, because it is not just about owning a coin, it is about holding history, rarity, and a story that cannot be replicated. And when collectors talk about the 2012 penny, they see it as part of a lineage of legendary errors such as the 1943 bronze Lincoln cent, the 1955 double die cent, or the 1969 double die obverse, each of which has sold for huge sums. And now the 2012 has joined their ranks despite being a modern coin, proving that extraordinary mistakes still happen in today's technologically advanced mint. And this possibility is what keeps the hobby alive, because every time someone looks through their pocket change or searches a coin roll, there is the dream of finding one of these treasures, a discovery that could change their life forever. And the appeal of such finds is universal, because anyone can stumble across one. And as more people heard about the $2 million 2012 penny, more people began examining their coins under magnifying glasses and coin microscopes, fueling a surge of interest in collecting. And it is this excitement that drives the passion of the numismatic community, because the thrill of discovery and the hope of unearthing the next great rarity is as powerful today as it was a century ago. And beyond the financial value, there is the educational aspect where studying errors teaches us about the minting process, the precision required, and how even a slight lapse can result in something entirely unique, because the U.S. Mint operates with incredible efficiency, and yet no system is flawless, and the flaws that escape inspection and make it into circulation become treasures for collectors. And this is the story of the 2012 cent, a coin that by all logic should be ordinary, but instead has become one of the most talked about modern rarities. A coin whose combination of mistakes made it invaluable. A coin that reminds us that sometimes imperfection is perfection. And as we conclude this exploration, think about how many millions of these coins are still out there, how many jars, drawers, and rolls of pennies remain unchecked, and how maybe, just maybe, another one of these extraordinary 2012 error cents is waiting to be found, waiting to transform an ordinary day into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And that is what makes coin collecting so magical, the blend of history, rarity, chance, and value that can take a penny worth 1 cent and turn it into a $2 million prize that will be remembered forever in the world of numismatics. Next, 1989 Lincoln penny. Today's incredible deep dive into the fascinating world of rare and valuable coins, where small details, minting errors, and unusual mistakes can turn an everyday piece of pocket change into a fortune. And in this video, we will explore the unbelievable story of the 1989 Lincoln 1 cent coin that has been valued at a jaw-dropping $3 million because of the errors and mistakes that make it so unique, so desirable, and so mysterious. And as we break down the features that have made this coin one of the most sought-after rarities in modern numismatics, you will begin to see how the combination of minting technology, human oversight, and sheer chance created something that collectors and investors dream of owning. Because while billions of 1989 pennies rolled off the presses in Denver, only a handful, or perhaps even just one, carries the exact blend of errors and mistakes that push its value into the multi-million-dollar range. And to truly understand why this coin matters, we need to start with the basics. The 1989 penny belongs to the Lincoln Memorial Cent series, which ran from 1959 until 2008 and was composed of copper-plated zinc after the mint transitioned away from bronze in 1982. So most of these coins are common and worth only a cent. But what transforms a cent into a multi-million-dollar treasure are errors that escape quality control at the mint and make their way into circulation or collector hands. And the 1989 is one of those extreme outliers. Now, one of the first errors identified on the legendary $3 million specimen is a dramatic double die obverse, where Abraham Lincoln's profile on the front of the coin shows unmistakable doubling, his eye appearing doubled, his lips and nose showing ghost-like shadows, and his ear clearly misaligned from where it should be. And double die errors occur when the die used to strike coins has a misaligned or multiple hub impression, creating a second set of details. And since this happens to the die itself, every coin struck from that die carries the error, making it a permanent and collectible variety. And collectors love these because they prove a flaw in the mint's die production process. And the more dramatic the doubling, the higher the value. And this 1989 shows one of the most extreme examples ever recorded. And if that wasn't enough, the same coin reportedly shows an off-center strike, meaning the design is not properly centered on the planchet, leaving part of the surface blank and shifting Lincoln's portrait towards the edge. And collectors prize these when the date remains visible, and in this case the 1989 and the D mint mark are clearly legible, making the coin not only an error, but a highly collectible one. And now imagine a coin that combines both a double die and an off-center strike that alone would command extraordinary prices at auction. But the story doesn't stop there, because evidence suggests that the 1989 multi-million-dollar penny may also be a mule. Error, meaning it was struck with a mismatched die pair, possibly with the Lincoln obverse matched with a reverse die intended for another denomination or perhaps even a test die. And mule coins are among the rarest errors in existence because they typically never leave the mint, and examples, like the famous Sacagawea $/Washington quarter mule, have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the existence of a mule penny from 1989 pushes its rarity into nearly mythical territory, and theories abound about how such a mistake could happen, with some suggesting it was a deliberate experiment by a mint worker or a mechanical oversight in the press room. But either way, the outcome is an extraordinary numismatic anomaly that collectors would fight over. And to compound the intrigue, some reports suggest that this 1989 penny may have been struck on a transitional planchet, meaning instead of the standard copper-plated zinc, it might have been struck on a leftover bronze planchet from earlier years, or even on a foreign coin blank mistakenly fed into the presses. And such transitional errors are legendary because they demonstrate moments of change at the mint when old materials overlap with new processes, and past transitional error pennies have sold for tens of thousands of dollars each. So if the 1989 combines a double die, an off-center strike, a mule error, and a transitional planchet, it becomes not just a rare coin, but a one-of-a-kind masterpiece that justifies a $3 million valuation. And beyond these dramatic errors, collectors have also speculated about the presence of die cracks, cuts, and strike-throughs on the coin, where cracks in the die create raised lines across the surface, or missing chunks of the die create blobs of metal, and strike-throughs occur when debris or objects come between the die and the planchet during striking, leaving imprints or missing details. And all of these additional quirks only add to the coin's mystique, because when you have a coin that already combines the rarest types of errors, every additional anomaly amplifies its value. And what makes this story even more captivating is the possibility that this coin went unnoticed for years, perhaps passing through the hands of countless people who never looked closely enough, maybe tossed in a jar or pocket before ending up in the possession of someone with the knowledge to recognize its uniqueness. And once authenticated by a professional grading service and confirmed as genuine, the coin's legend was sealed. And when it appeared in auction, the bidding wars began, with wealthy collectors and investors pushing the price into the millions, and the hammer eventually falling at an astonishing $3 million, making this one of the most valuable pennies in the world. And what makes stories like this so exciting for collectors everywhere is the possibility, however slim, that another similar coin could still be out there waiting to be found, because billions of pennies were struck in 1989, and the idea that just one of them could be worth millions inspires people to look more closely at their change, their coin jars, and their collections. And this is the magic of coin collecting, the thrill of the hunt, the chance of discovery, and the knowledge that history, rarity, and human error can transform base metal into a fortune. And the 1989 penny encapsulates all of these elements perfectly, and its value is not just monetary but also symbolic, representing the unpredictable beauty of the minting process, the human element that allows mistakes to slip through, and the passion of collectors who elevate these mistakes into treasures. And as time goes on, the value of this coin may continue to rise because its uniqueness cannot be replicated. No new examples are likely to be found, and with each passing year, more collectors enter the hobby. More investors recognize the potential of rare coins, and more demand is placed on a supply that remains fixed. And this is why coins like the 1989 $3 million penny are considered not only collectibles, but also investments, capable of outperforming more traditional assets in the long run. And it is worth reflecting on how incredible it is that something so small, so ordinary in appearance, could hold within it a story so rich and a value so great. And this is why we encourage you to look closely at your coins, to pay attention to dates, mint marks, and unusual features, because while the odds are small, the rewards are life-changing. And in the world of numismatics, dreams do come true for those who search carefully. And so the 1989 D penny stands as a shining example of how errors and mistakes can transform an ordinary cent into a multimillion-dollar marvel, a piece of history that will be remembered and celebrated for generations, and a reminder that sometimes the greatest treasures are hidden in plain sight, waiting only for the right pair of eyes to notice them. Next, 2007 D Lincoln penny. Today, as we dive into one of the most fascinating, mind-blowing, and unbelievable stories in the world of coin collecting, because today we are going to explore the incredible journey of a coin that most people would dismiss as a simple piece of pocket change, but which in fact has stunned collectors, dealers, and investors around the world by reaching a value so astronomical that it almost defies belief. The legendary 2007 D Lincoln cent that has been valued at up to $11 million. Because of the extraordinary errors, mistakes, and possibilities that make it one of the most valuable coins ever known. And in this epic exploration, we are going to take you through the world of rare coins in a way you have never experienced before, as we unravel how a 1-cent coin struck at the Denver Mint in 2007 could climb into the rarefied air of multimillion-dollar treasures. What kinds of mint errors could possibly push its worth so high? How collectors and investors react to such anomalies, and why the marketplace is willing to reward a small copper-plated zinc coin with a price tag bigger than mansions, sports cars, or even private jets. So get ready, because this script is going to be an ultra-deep journey through history, minting technology, error classification, auction drama, collector psychology, and numismatic folklore, all rolled into one continuous narrative that will leave you in awe of how a penny could become worth $11 million. To begin with, we must set the stage by recalling what a 2007 D penny normally is: a coin struck at the Denver Mint with a copper-plated zinc composition of 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper plating, weighing about 2.5 grams, and carrying the familiar Lincoln Memorial reverse design that had been used from 1959 until 2008. And while billions of these were struck and distributed into circulation, the reality of minting billions of coins is that mistakes are inevitable, and when mistakes occur, some of them are so dramatic and so rare that they elevate a coin into the upper stratosphere of value. And that is the case for the 2007 D cent, where we must imagine a combination of multiple possible errors stacking together to produce a coin that is not only visually stunning but historically unique, instantly capturing the imagination of collectors worldwide. Now let us go through the errors one by one, starting with one of the most celebrated and iconic types of mint mistake, the double die obverse, where because of a misalignment in the hubbing process, the design elements such as the date 2007, the word liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust" are impressed twice slightly offset from each other, producing dramatic doubling that can be seen with the naked eye. And history shows us that dramatic double dies, like the 1955 cent or the 1969 cent, can bring tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands. So imagine if in 2007 at Denver a dramatic double die obverse occurred, showing clear doubling on the date, the mint mark, and the motto, and then imagine that error being preserved in pristine mint state condition. Instantly we are talking about a rarity worth astronomical sums. But let us not stop there, because other possible errors include off-center strikes where the coin blank is not properly seated in the press and ends up struck off its normal alignment, sometimes missing large parts of the design, and the more dramatic the off-center, especially when the date and mint mark are still visible, the more collectors will pay. And a 75% off-center strike with a full 2007 D date would be an incredible sight, instantly multiplying its value. Then there are broad strike errors, where the collar that normally constrains the coin during striking fails and the metal expands outward, creating a stretched, unusual appearance, and clipped planchet errors where part of the blank is missing before striking, leaving the coin with crescent-shaped clips, both highly collectible on their own, but even more valuable when combined with other dramatic errors. Another remarkable class of errors comes in the form of wrong planchet strikes, where a cent is accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination, such as a dime, nickel, or even a foreign coin planchet, producing a coin of incorrect weight, color, and appearance, and these can be among the most valuable errors of all, especially when authenticated by PCGS or NGC. And when you consider the massive production of coins in 2007, the possibility of a straight planchet from another denomination entering the presses is entirely real, meaning that a 2007 D-cent struck on a silver dime planchet or even on a leftover bronze blank from earlier decades would be the kind of find that drives collectors into frenzy, bidding values into the multi-million-dollar range. Transitional errors are another fascinating possibility, where a coin is struck on a composition intended for another year or denomination, and while the official composition for cents after 1982 was copper-plated zinc, if by accident a leftover bronze planchet from earlier production was struck in 2007, the rarity would be mind-boggling, since it would mean a coin of a composition that should not exist, and history has shown us that transitional errors can command astronomical values because of their uniqueness. Imagine a 2007 D-cent struck on bronze, certified genuine, preserved in gem condition, and marketed as a one-of-a-kind transitional rarity. It is easy to see how such a piece could fetch sums approaching or even surpassing $11 million at auction. Then we must also consider die breaks and cuts, where the die itself cracks or chips, leaving raised metal blobs or missing parts of design on the struck coins, and sometimes these can grow into dramatic features that collectors nickname and cherish. And when paired with other errors such as doubling, off-center strikes, or wrong planchet errors, the effect is multiplied, creating what collectors call multiple error coins, which are among the most visually appealing and highly valued pieces in the entire numismatic field. But rarity alone is not enough. Condition is crucial, because even the most dramatic error coin loses much of its value if heavily worn. But if a spectacular error is discovered early and preserved in uncirculated mint state condition, graded MS66, MS67, or higher, then it enters a level of desirability few coins ever reach, and collectors with deep pockets line up to own the best of the best, further driving record prices. The emotional side of collecting also cannot be underestimated, because coins like the 2007 $11 million cent are not just metal but symbols of uniqueness, chance, and history, tangible reminders of how even the most routine industrial processes like coinage can produce miracles of error that excite the imagination. And collectors often justify spending fortunes because they are not merely buying a coin, they are buying a story, a legend, and a legacy, something to pass on or to display with pride, knowing it connects them to history in a unique way. Auction houses play a huge role in pushing values upward, because when a coin like this appears on the block at a premier event hosted by Heritage, Stax Bowers, or Legend Rare Coin auctions, intense bidding wars break out among wealthy collectors, each unwilling to surrender the chance at ownership, and the hammer price can easily leap far beyond pre-auction estimates, creating sensational headlines that spread across collector forums, newspapers, and television, further cementing the legend of the coin and inspiring new generations of collectors to search their change. The 2007 D pennies valuation of $11 million represents not just its physical rarity, but the perfect storm of dramatic mint errors, pristine condition, millennium-era symbolism, collector psychology, and auction dynamics, all of which feed into each other in a self-reinforcing cycle where scarcity and demand collide to produce once-in-a-lifetime values. And think about the thrill of discovery, because somewhere out there, perhaps in a coin jar, a roll of pennies, or a forgotten collection, lies the chance for someone to stumble across such a rarity, to feel their heart race as they notice something unusual on a 2007 D-cent, to take it for authentication, and to realize they are holding in their hand an $11 million treasure. A life-changing find that instantly transforms an ordinary person into a legend in the numismatic world. It is this dream, this possibility, that keeps collectors searching tirelessly through rolls, boxes, and jars of coins, always hoping that the next coin they flip over could be the jackpot, and that dream is what fuels the fascination and the marketplace. Next, 1975 D Lincoln penny. Today, as we take another exciting journey into the world of rare coins, where we discover that sometimes the smallest piece of pocket change can transform into a life-changing treasure. And today's story focuses on the 1975 D 1-cent coin, a Lincoln penny minted in Denver that under normal circumstances is worth just a single cent. But because of a combination of unique errors, mistakes, minting anomalies, and circumstances tied to its production, a particular example has been valued at an astonishing $1 million, and in this discussion, we will dive deep into what makes this coin so incredibly special, why collectors and experts have assigned it such extraordinary value, and what kinds of errors can elevate an ordinary coin into a true numismatic masterpiece. So sit back and imagine for a moment the thrill of holding in your hand something that appears completely ordinary yet is actually a treasure worth more than houses, cars, and fortunes, because that is exactly the magic behind rare coin errors. And with the 1975 D penny, we explore not just its physical qualities, but also the context of its production, its potential mistakes, and the many possibilities that make it so desirable, starting with the time period itself. In 1975, the United States Mint was still producing Lincoln cents primarily composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, the traditional bronze alloy that had been in use for decades, with billions of pennies struck each year at facilities like Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. But mass production always opens the door for unusual errors to slip through, and while most mistakes are caught and destroyed, occasionally a spectacular piece escapes, making its way into circulation where one lucky finder might stumble upon it. And in Denver, where the 1975 D pennies were struck, such errors could be anything from double dies to misaligned strikes to off-metal planchets. And it is exactly these possibilities that explain how a 1975 D penny could reach the valuation of $1 million. So let us begin by looking at one of the most famous and collectible types of mistakes, the double die error, which occurs when the design on the die itself has been accidentally impressed twice during the hubbing process, leaving details like the date, Liberty, or In God We Trust doubled and clearly visible to the naked eye. Now collectors go crazy for doubled dies, especially when the doubling is bold and dramatic, and while the most famous double die penny is the 1955 example, other years have produced spectacular double dies as well. So imagine if a 1975 D penny had one of the strongest double dies ever recorded, with Liberty and the date showing heavy doubling. Such an error alone could command thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, but when combined with other errors, the value multiplies exponentially. Another important category of mistakes to consider are wrong planchet strikes, which happen when a coin is struck on a blank intended for another denomination or sometimes even for a foreign coin, and the mid-1970s were a period when the mint was also striking coinage for other countries. So there is always the possibility that a 1975 D penny was struck on a dime planchet, nickel planchet, or even an exotic foreign planchet, and such pieces are instantly recognized as rare and desirable. And if the coin also bore a bold double die or an off-center strike, the uniqueness would become undeniable. Driving value higher, off-center strikes themselves are another factor that can make a coin valuable, because they result in part of the design being missing while leaving a crescent of blank metal visible, and the more dramatic the off-center, the more valuable the coin tends to be, especially if the date remains visible. So a 1975 D penny with a dramatic off-center strike combined with another error, like a die clash or double denomination strike, would certainly excite collectors. And then we have transitional errors, where a coin is struck on the wrong composition due to leftover blanks from a previous or future year being used. And though 1975 was firmly in the copper era, it is not impossible that experimental planchets or other metals were tested or misused, making for intriguing possibilities. Another spectacular error type is the double denomination error, where a coin is struck over an already struck coin of another denomination, for instance, a penny struck over a dime, creating a fascinating layered effect where traces of both designs are visible, and such pieces are so rare and dramatic that they instantly climb into the upper echelons of value. And if such an error happened in 1975 at the Denver Mint, the resulting penny could very well be the $1,000,000 specimen in question. But errors are not limited to planchets and strikes, as die errors also play a massive role, with die clashes being a prime example, occurring when the obverse and reverse dies smash together without a planchet in place, imprinting ghostly outlines of one design onto the other die, and later transferring those impressions onto coins, creating strange and collectible patterns. And in the case of a 1975 D penny, a dramatic die clash could make it stand out, especially when combined with other factors like broad strikes or partial collars, which occur when the retaining collar fails to properly constrain the metal during striking, resulting in a coin that expands or develops an odd edge, adding another layer of uniqueness. And when you start stacking these possibilities together, the imagination quickly reveals how a penny can go from ordinary to legendary, because collectors are not just paying for one mistake, they are paying for a perfect storm of multiple rare features. And this is where provenance and rarity really come into play, as not every coin that exists with an error will reach astronomical prices, but when a coin is one of a kind or one of only a handful known, and when its story captures the imagination of collectors, investors, and the media, then values climb rapidly. And this is what likely happened with the $1,000,000 1975 D penny, a coin that perhaps combines several jaw-dropping errors into one unique piece, authenticated by the top grading services and preserved in high-grade condition, making it not just a curiosity, but a museum-worthy artifact. And beyond the technical errors, there is also the human psychology that drives value, because collectors are motivated not just by rarity, but by the prestige of owning something unique. And when wealthy collectors compete at auction, prices soar, each bid driving the value higher until the final hammer price reaches shocking levels. And that is how coins like this can achieve seven-figure valuations. But it also serves as a reminder for all of us to check our change carefully, because the chance of finding a valuable error penny is never zero. And countless stories exist of people discovering treasures worth thousands in circulation. So when we look at the 1975 D penny valued at $1,000,000, we are not just looking at one coin, but at the possibilities hidden in every pocket and every coin jar. And that sense of discovery is what makes numismatics such an exciting and rewarding hobby, because whether it is a double die, a wrong planchet, an off-center strike, a die clash, a broad strike, or a double denomination, each error tells a story of how human machinery is never perfect, and how imperfection can sometimes lead to perfection in the eyes of collectors. And this very imperfection has given us one of the most talked about rarities of modern numismatics, the 1975 D penny that turned into a $1,000,000 miracle, a shining example of how history, rarity, and human fascination with the unusual can transform a tiny piece of copper into something priceless. And as we continue to explore coins like this, we remind ourselves that the pursuit of hidden treasures in the most ordinary places is what keeps this passion alive. So next time you come across a 1975 D penny, take a closer look, because while most are worth just a cent, there is always the possibility that yours might be the next legendary discovery that shakes the coin world. Next, 2002 D Lincoln penny today, as we uncover one of the most fascinating and extraordinary stories in the world of rare coins and valuable treasures hidden in plain sight. Because in this video, we are going to take a deep dive into the incredible 2002 D 1 cent coin. A coin that by face value is worth only a single penny, but under the right circumstances has sold for as much as $4 million due to the unique errors, mistakes, and minting anomalies that make it a true numismatic legend. And as we explore the mysteries surrounding this small copper-colored coin from the Denver Mint, you will begin to see why error coins have captured the imagination of collectors, why auction houses have recorded staggering results for such seemingly ordinary pieces of change, and why the 2002D penny in particular stands out as one of the most valuable cents ever discovered. So let's begin by understanding the context of the coin itself. The United States Mint in Denver produced billions of 1-cent coins in 2002 as part of the Lincoln Memorial Cent series, which ran from 1959 until 2008. And because so many coins were struck, most people would assume that a 2002D penny is just another common coin destined to be tossed in a jar or used in everyday transactions. But hidden among these billions were a handful of coins that came off the presses with rare mistakes. Transitional design oddities, off-metal strikes, double dies, off-center alignments, planchet mix-ups, and other anomalies that transformed them from pocket change into priceless collectibles. And it is precisely these unique mistakes that explain how one particular 2002D cent could reach the unbelievable price of $4 million at auction. So let's break down the types of errors that can occur and why they matter so much. First, we have double die errors. One of the most famous types of mistakes where the design on the obverse or reverse of the coin appears double due to a misalignment in the die hubbing process. If you have ever seen the famous 1955 double die set, you know how dramatic such errors can look, and a 2002D with a strong double die on Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or the date itself would immediately attract the attention of collectors. And if that same coin happened to combine the double die with other unusual features, it would become one of a kind and extremely valuable. Another major category is off-center strikes where the dies and planchet are misaligned so that the design is shifted and incomplete, sometimes leaving large blank crescent-shaped areas on the coin. And if the date remains fully visible along with the mint mark, collectors prize such errors. And in the case of the 2002D penny, an extreme off-center strike paired with a dramatic double die would make it a numismatic marvel. Now let's consider planchet errors. The blank piece of metal onto which the coin design is struck is called a planchet, and sometimes wrong planchets are fed into the presses, creating coins struck on dime blanks, foreign coin blanks, or leftover alloy compositions. So if a 2002D penny were struck on a copper planchet instead of the normal zinc core with copper plating, the weight would be different and the color distinct, making it incredibly rare. Or imagine a 2002D cent struck on a dime planchet, smaller in size and thinner in weight. Such an error would be instantly noticeable and extremely valuable. Combining this with a double die or off-center strike would elevate its status into the $1 million category. Then we have transitional design errors. And while 2002 was not officially a major transition year, the Mint was already working with dies and design adjustments for future cents, and there have been instances in numismatic history where proof dies or experimental dies were accidentally used on business strikes, resulting in coins with design details that were never intended to circulate. If a 2002D cent exists with such a design anomaly, that could be another reason why its value skyrocketed to $4 million. And then there are striking errors such as die caps, brockages, and multiple strikes. For instance, if a coin remains stuck to a die and continues to strike subsequent planchets, it creates brockage errors with mirrored impressions on one side, or if a planchet is struck multiple times without ejecting properly, it may show overlapping images and distortions that collectors pay dearly for. A multiple struck 2002D penny with clear dates and mint marks visible would be worth an extraordinary amount, especially if preserved in mint state condition. And speaking of condition, the grade of a coin is another critical factor, because collectors and investors always pay a premium for coins certified by PCGS or NGC at the highest levels such as MS68 or MS69 red. And when you combine a rare error with a high grade, the value multiplies exponentially. This is one of the major reasons why the 2002 D-cent has achieved such legendary status, because the known examples include not just errors, but errors in stunning uncirculated condition, preserved almost as if they just left the press. And this kind of preservation is incredibly rare given that most coins are banged around in bags, rolls, and circulation. Now let's think about some specific examples of what could create a $4 million valuation. One scenario could be a 2002 D penny struck on a rare planchet, such as a pre-1982 copper blank, combined with a strong double die obverse, off-center strike, and mint state red condition, making it unique in the world. Another scenario could be a coin with a brockage error on one side, wide AM reverse variety, and pristine grade, again combining features that make it literally one of a kind. And this is the key to understanding million-dollar coins. They are not just rare, they are unique, with no other known examples in the exact same configuration, and collectors at the highest level will pay almost anything to acquire such unique treasures, because owning the only one means absolute bragging rights and status in the numismatic community. Another factor to consider is the psychology of collecting, because once news spreads that a coin like the 2002 D penny with its errors exists, demand increases dramatically, and competition among wealthy collectors at auctions can drive prices to unbelievable heights. This is why a penny can sell for $4 million, not because every 2002 D penny is worth that much, but because one example with a perfect storm of errors, condition, and rarity attracted such fierce bidding. And beyond the technical side, there is also the magic of discovery, the thrill that maybe one day you could be the person who finds such a coin in circulation. And this possibility keeps collectors searching through pocket change, coin rolls, and old collections, knowing that even today treasures are waiting to be uncovered. So when we look at the 2002 D penny and ask why it is so valuable, the answer lies in the convergence of minting mistakes, historical context, grading condition, collector demand, and auction dynamics, and all of these combine to transform a coin worth 1 cent into a treasure worth millions. And the lessons from this are clear. Always pay attention to the coins you come across. Look closely at the details. Check the alignment of the letters in America. Study Liberty for signs of doubling. Weigh the coin for unusual planchet types. Examine the edges for off-center strikes, and never dismiss a penny as worthless, because history has shown time and again that the tiniest coins can carry the greatest surprises. And this is why stories like the 2002 D 1 cent worth $4 million continue to inspire collectors and casual observers alike, because they remind us that sometimes the most extraordinary treasures are hiding in the most ordinary places. And the incredible tale of this penny will live on in numismatic history as a shining example of how errors and mistakes can create unimaginable value. Last 1974 D Lincoln penny. We explore the hidden treasures of coin collecting, the fascinating stories of ordinary-looking coins that end up being worth life-changing sums of money. And today we are going to take a journey into one of the most surprising and incredible tales in numismatics, the 1974 D 1 cent coin that has stunned collectors and the public alike by reaching a jaw-dropping value of $3 million because of its errors, mistakes, and rare varieties that make it one of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever known. And as we begin, let's set the stage by remembering that the Denver Mint in 1974 was producing massive numbers of Lincoln cents. Billions were struck that year, and most of them were the standard copper composition coins we are used to seeing. But in the midst of this flood of production, a handful of extraordinary mistakes slipped through the cracks. And those mistakes are what elevate a simple penny from pocket change into a multi-million-dollar rarity. And so today we will dive into the details of what kinds of errors, anomalies, and possibilities could make the 1974 cent so valuable, why collectors are willing to pay astronomical sums for it, and how you too can learn to recognize the signs of a potentially life-changing coin. And to begin, it's important to understand the background, because 1974 was a very unusual year in American coinage. It was during this period that the United States Mint was experimenting with the idea of switching the 1-cent coin from copper to aluminum in order to save costs. Over 1 million aluminum cents were struck in 1974 as test pieces, and although most were later destroyed, a small handful escaped into collectors' hands, some from Philadelphia and some from Denver, and because they were never intended for circulation, these coins are technically patterns and are illegal to own. Yet a few examples are rumored to exist in private collections, and this alone gives the 1974 cent an air of mystery and rarity that makes it different from most years. But when we focus on the Denver Mint copper issues, we find that errors and die varieties from this year can be truly dramatic, and in the case of the legendary $3,001,974 cent, we are talking about a coin that shows a combination of mistakes that makes it one of a kind. Imagine a double die obverse where the date 1974 and the word Liberty show clear and bold doubling, paired with a repunched mint mark where the D has been stamped more than once in slightly different positions, and then add to that a dramatic off-center strike where a portion of the design is missing, leaving a crescent of blank planchet. And if that were not enough, imagine the coin being struck on a transitional planchet, perhaps an aluminum or even a foreign coin blank, creating a composition error that makes the coin unlike any other. And suddenly we have a piece that breaks all the rules of what a penny should look like, making it not just rare but truly unique. And uniqueness is the key driver in numismatic value, because collectors are not just buying metal, they are buying history, rarity, and the story that comes with the coin. And the story of the 1974 cent is one of intrigue and accident. A coin that should never have existed yet somehow did. A survivor of the minting process that defied the odds and came out with a combination of features that experts and collectors could only dream of. And when such a coin appears at auction, it causes shockwaves through the collecting community, with bidders fighting fiercely to secure it, pushing its price into the multi-million-dollar range until it reaches $3 million. And let's think more deeply about the kinds of errors that can appear on 1974 cents, because even though most errors are minor and worth only a few dollars, some are spectacular. You could have broad strikes where the coin expands outward with no defined rim, multiple strikes where the coin was struck more than once in different positions, creating a ghostly layered image, struck through errors where grease, cloth, or wire left impressions on the surface, or clipped planchets where a curved piece of the coin's edge is missing due to an error in the blanking machine, and any of these on their own might add some value. But when multiple dramatic errors combine on the same coin, the result is exponential in value. And that's what happened with this $3 million example, a perfect storm of minting mistakes that all ended up on one single penny. And collectors know that the Denver Mint during the 1970s was notorious for producing a wide range of RPMs or repunched mint marks, because the mint mark was applied to the die by hand in those years, meaning there were many opportunities for mistakes, and a strong repunch can command a lot of collector interest. And when such a feature is present on a coin with other dramatic errors, it elevates it to legendary status. And we must also consider the historical context of the aluminum cent experiments, because collectors speculate that some 1974 cents may have been struck on leftover aluminum blanks or experimental compositions, and if one of those escaped into the public, it would explain why the value skyrockets to $3 million, because you would not just have an error coin. You would have a forbidden rarity tied directly to one of the most controversial moments in U.S. mint history, and this adds an aura of mystery and desirability to the coin, making it the centerpiece of any collection. And when you think about the excitement this generates, you realize why numismatics is so addictive. The idea that a coin worth only a cent at face value could carry within it the possibility of a fortune is thrilling, and it inspires people to carefully check their change, to study the varieties, and to dream of making a discovery that could change their lives. And stories like the $3,001,974 descent fuel that excitement because they prove it is possible, and collectors, dealers, and investors alike all become captivated by the allure of such a coin, studying its details under microscopes, documenting its features in reference books, and retelling its story at coin shows and conventions. And as the legend grows, so too does the demand, pushing the value ever higher. And to fully appreciate why this coin commands $3 million, we must understand the psychology of collecting. Collectors crave the unique. They want to own something no one else can. And when a coin like this 1974 descent surfaces with its once-in-a-lifetime combination of errors and history, it becomes an ultimate prize. And price almost becomes irrelevant, because the opportunity to own it may only come once in a lifetime. And that's why when it appears at auction, the hammer price soars beyond imagination, and the record books are rewritten. And we must remember that condition also plays a role, because for a coin with errors to survive in high grade is rare. Most error coins are mishandled, scratched, or spent in circulation. But if this 1974 descent survived in near perfect condition, perhaps because it was plucked from circulation early and preserved, then the value multiplies again. And so when you combine rarity, error, condition, and story, you get the recipe for a $3 million coin. And looking at the bigger picture, the 1974 descent teaches us a lesson about paying attention to detail, because the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and one worth 3 million can come down to tiny clues, a double date, an off-center strike, a wrong planchet, or a repunchment mark, details that the casual observer would never notice, but that make all the difference to collectors. And this is why numismatics remains one of the most rewarding hobbies, because it trains you to look closely, to appreciate craftsmanship, and to understand how history, chance, and error can combine to create treasures beyond imagination. And so the story of the 1974 D1 cent worth $3 million will continue to inspire collectors for generations, reminding us that treasures can still be found in the most ordinary places, and that the thrill of the hunt is alive and well in every handful of change. And as we close this incredible journey into the world of rare cents, remember that while the odds of finding such a coin are incredibly slim, the possibility always exists, and it is that possibility that makes the hobby so exciting, because every coin has a story, and some stories, like the 1974 descent, are worth millions.